just while you set up the slides, I'm going to say that I'm a little bit nervous. My mouth is dry. I feel like a fraud sometimes. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. And I'm going to start by trying to win you over and like appear as vulnerable. So you don't know very much about me except what I just told you, and that's a little bit of a story that I told you. I selected all the details of my life to tell you some of those, and that's a story. And we can decide whether or not that's fiction or whether it's real. I'm a lecturer here in UCD. I did my undergraduate degree here. I did my master's here. I did my PhD here, looking at how we engage with film and how all of these were in psychology. And then I was a lecturer in Dunleary IADT for 3.5 years, and then I started here in January. And I was trying to think about maybe what I'd talk about, and I thought I could talk about my research, but I'd prefer to also say something that could be maybe kind of meaningful for the people who are listening. So I'm going to try and wrap these ideas together. I'm still kind of figuring them out as I'm saying them out loud, so I appreciate your patience and your curiosity and your thoughts as well. I'll start with my research. I'm interested in the way in which we engage with fiction and stories and film, and how these sorts of things can seem so realistic, and how that engages our thoughts and our emotions, our body and our mind. And we can watch a film. I've conducted a number of experiments, and that in this I'm showing that while we're watching a film, we can see that these things are emotional experiences and they can move us. But at the same time, we know they're fiction, right? We know it's not real. And people kind of agree and appreciate that point. They're going, yeah, we know it's not real. But I'm interested in what could that even mean? What does it mean it's not real? Because we're really watching the film. We're really responding to it. It's really affecting me in some way. So there's a lot of realism in that. There's a lot of meaningful ideas in there and meaningful experiences. And I'm interested in how we can have all that realism despite the fact that we know that this is just fiction. We know it's not real. Okay, so what I thought I'd do is say a little bit about psychology of engaging with film by showing you a scene from a film. It's a really nice film. It's The Wizard of Oz, many of you will know about it. And it's a scene from that where the heroes, Dorothy and gang, meet the Wizard of Oz, and it's all an illusion. And they're completely sucked in by this illusion, and they're completely engaged by this illusion until the curtain is pulled from this illusion.
I said come back tomorrow.
If you were really great and powerful, you'd keep your promises.
Do you presume to criticize the great Oz? You ungrateful creatures think yourselves lucky that I'm giving you audience tomorrow instead of 20 years from now. Oh, the great Oz has spoken. Oh, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. The great Oz has spoken.
Who are you?
Oh, I am the great and powerful Wizard of Oz.
You are? I don't believe you.
No, I'm afraid it's true. There's no other wizard except me. You humbug! Yes, it's exactly so. I'm a humbug.
Oh, you're a very bad man.
Oh, no, my dear.
I guess you could say he's a fraud. And there's an illusion there that people could succumb to, and it works as long as you pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. See, film provides us with this really compelling illusion of realism. Our body and our brain and our eyes respond to what it sees. Explosions, landscapes, all that sort of stuff. Our body responds to this as though it is real. Our heart rate is racing, our pupils are dilating. As long as we pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Because when we notice that something is just fictional, then it starts to affect our bodily responses. And in a way, then, we can be completely overwhelmed or sucked into a film, but we can also have some choice or some ability to regulate our experience, depending on what we pay attention to. Right? So now it's not always a choice. Sometimes our attention is completely sucked into a film, or sometimes the person beside us in the cinema maybe turns on their phone and you're completely blinded and it drags your attention away. But other than that, we can say that when we pay attention to something, it seems real. and we can change that realism or that story depending on the details we pay attention to. And so that's one of the ideas that I wanted to start with and build on. And that's about my research and how we kind of engage with film. But I wanted to also try and say something meaningful to you guys, and I'm going to try now to apply that to other areas of our life. So we can think of us watching a film as listening to a storyteller. And when Brian was introducing, or this talk could also be a storytelling. That could be me up there and you guys are sitting around. Or it's also true that we tell stories all the time. We're not just passive receivers of stories. We tell stories, we create stories. So that could be you at the next interview or filling out an application form, and you're picking and you're choosing details that are relevant or that will help draw someone's attention to the illusion, maybe. Or maybe you want to draw their attention to the man behind the curtain. And also what I wanted to talk to you about is the fact that we also tell these stories about ourselves, to ourselves, right? And that sometimes they can feel like they're just a story or that they're fiction. Okay, so I have one of those stories I tell about myself. I never learned to cycle when I was younger. I know, it's crazy. What did you do when you were younger? This is normally what I get. Like, how did you spend your time? I think when I was maybe a little bit older, I didn't learn because I was a bit embarrassed. I thought I was too old to learn. And in the end, I never learned. And this is a story I tell about myself. And it makes sense. It's fine. I know this is true about myself. It's a story. And it fits in with another story I tell about myself because I'm not very sporty. And that's fine, and these are things. But another story then is that I love the water, and that's something that I know about myself and a story that I tell myself, and I believe. And so maybe when I turned 30, friends of mine were all buying houses and settling down, and as some sort of gesture towards my age, I decided I better do something, and I joined some local swimming classes, and because I love the water, right? But I wasn't there out of some sort of competitive desire to do better and better. I was going because I liked the social element and I liked the routine. I wasn't trying to get better because I'm not sporty, right? And so I went and I liked the social element, and these two guys joined and they were training for a triathlon. And I got on really well with them, and I enjoyed spending time with them during the week. And so as they went on and left those classes to train, I thought, I'll just join them for a bit of the training, and I can bow out when they need to go on. And so I continued to train with them, and then I bought myself a pair of runners, and I decided I'd train with them for running, and I hadn't done that before. And then Colin, one of my friends, said, you know, you should do the triathlon with us. You've done all the training. And I said, no, I can't, because I can't cycle, and that's a really important part of the triathlon. He said, there are still 2 months left, and you've done so much so far, why don't you try it? So I borrowed a friend's bike, and it had to be the dark. I had to go out to some car park where no one was around, and I was teaching myself to cycle. And so eventually I want to play down this bit because I did the triathlon. It was Olympic distance, 1.5K swim, a 40K cycle, and then a 10K run. And this isn't supposed to be some kind of like triumphant story about me, you know, changing something about myself. Because the point I'm trying to make is I never changed that story about myself. And that someone could say, how did you not change that story? You did that stuff. And I said, because I was paying attention to different details, to a different story. I knew that my time was horrendous in the triathlon, and no one ever talks about that. They're like, oh, you just did it. I also fell off the bike in the middle of the triathlon and cut myself up really badly. There were no pictures of me to prove I did the triathlon because the event organizers didn't want to show someone covered in blood finishing. This was after I'd been cleaned up. And I think the point was that I was paying attention to those details because, of course, this makes sense if I can't cycle and I'm not sporty. But my point is that I'm allowed to have those stories about myself and still do things, not let them get in the way. Right? And the only way I can do that is if I recognize that they're just stories, right? That it's just fiction. And you don't have to get rid of those things or change them, because people can find a lot of security in those ideas, but they don't have to get in the way of doing what you want to do. And if you watch the Wizard of Oz clip immediately after where I stopped it, you'll see something that's kind of relevant to those ideas as well. What happens next, you can go and look at. But we do this in film all the time. We're able to hold those two ideas, those ideas that something is fictional, it's just a story, and at the same time, it's not ruining my experience, right? If someone says, that's so unbelievable, you go, yeah, it's just a film. But still, you're engaged and you're emotionally moved by that idea. So this isn't new. I told you, I'm not sure I mentioned it, but I lecture statistics and research methods to psychology students, not math students, not accounting students, psychology students. And so they often feel, I hear a lot of those stories and they're like, yeah, but I'm not mathsy, right? Actually, numbers terrify me. I'm not here to do statistics. And there's all sorts of stories we tell ourselves all the time, like, I'm not creative, I'm not a people person, I don't speak in front of people. And as a scientist, I'm trying to say we reject strong claims that do not have evidence, right? So we look to the evidence. And when I'm doing that, I'm saying to the students that, oh, sure, you might not be a mathsy person, but university education is at the top of the scale, right? And you're getting a solid C grade in a statistics class in university, despite the fact that you're saying you're not a mathsy person. Or you're getting a B grade, despite the fact that you don't believe in yourself. Right? And so when I think back about my career, I'm trying to think of those times when I felt like I was an imposter or I was vulnerable. And again, because of the dry mouth, right now I have to take a drink of water. But I always felt like I was going to be found out. I always felt like people are going to discover that I don't belong here. And at the same time, I've got two postgraduate degrees, I'm a lecturer in a university, and I'm killing it. But we're not allowed to say that all the time, right? We're not, because especially in Ireland, we're not allowed to kind of appreciate that because there's always that sense that we're going to get found out. Although, related to that though, I do want to say that psychology at the moment is an unregulated profession, and so there are a lot of people out there, and although that's changing, there are a lot of people out there who are not qualified to be giving therapy, and that perhaps that sort of faking it is inappropriate, and I'm not condoning it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying go and do the things that you shouldn't be doing. I'm saying when you have these stories about yourself, you can recognize their stories and look to the evidence. Don't let them stand in the way if there's evidence there to the opposite. So just to wrap up, I wanted to say that linking this idea of how we engage with film and how we can think about ourselves is that people use this idea that this is fiction to calm themselves down. If they see a monster on the screen, they don't go running because they know this is fiction. It keeps them grounded, calms them down, but at the same time, when they really want to get the most out of an experience, they can look to the evidence. Thanks.